we have to report the facts. And I think that there are, and I don't want to make this point before I make the next one, I'm sure there are many Palestinians who have lived under the horror of Hamas who don't want any of this. But if you go down the Finchley Road, as a friend of mine did yesterday, and you see people defacing posters of missing Jewish hostages and painting Adolf Hitler moustaches on the faces of children, you will not convince me that that is not the worst and most abhorrent type of anti-Semitism and has no place in our society.
Thank you for bringing that up, and it was something that I wanted to speak about too. I actually, myself, was in West Hampstead putting up posters, and even on my way here this morning, I happened to look out of the car and see a row of posters and half of them were torn down. And so to have people crying for the plight of innocent Palestinians, which of course is so important and we need, but then to conditionally pick and choose and deface posters of innocent babies, and for people to not be saying free hostages. Why is that not being said when people are marching down the street or saying free Palestine from Hamas, from a terrorist organisation? So that's unfathomable to me, how human beings aren't condemning barbaric acts of terrorism. And I think it feels morally reprehensible to me.
It's so important to separate Jewish people from the Israeli government, and so many are confused. I mean, I'm not going to lie, this conflict is so difficult sometimes to report on, because even the misinformation that gets passed around,
the hospital thing.
The hospital
I wanted
explosion.
to bring that up today, and I'm really honoured to be here. And, you know, it was a meaningful experience to talk to you guys last time and to be here now. But as a British Jew, and also an Israeli, to have reputable news sources do something like that with huge, terrible consequences. You know, that the Arab world was looting the oldest synagogue in Tunisia. People, an elderly couple in Paris had their home burnt down. A female rabbi in Chicago was murdered because of misinformation, which was so quick to blame Israel, and the world was marching and protesting. And then as soon as they retracted their statement...
Yeah, but the world has changed, Georgia, and you're so right. I mean, Nick and I talk about this every day. Everybody has this insatiable desire to get their stuff online, and what is true? I think it's abhorrent, but I also know that our job, we talk about this every day. I've watched people who are better than me by a mile at doing this job struggle, because I think all we can do is report the facts. Yeah. Nobody with a brain cell wants death, destruction and misery. But I will, until they drag me out of this studio, what took place on October the 7th. It's not revenge, by the way. It's ridding society and the world of a disgusting terrorist cell. And I genuinely... for all Jewish people, I think it is appalling that you can face that in everyday life. I think you're right. I don't know what Nick thinks. You went to a Jewish wedding at the weekend, Nicola, and she was talking to a rabbi who was explaining this. It's probably opened my eyes. Dave's probably told me about this in the past, but this has shone a light on something that is reprehensible.
And even just want to mention the anti-Semitism that sweeps through society or on the streets, so that people don't even realise. I mean, social media is a whole other scary war that's going on right now, but people will say things, you Jews own the media, you own Hollywood. I mean, that's anti-Semitism at its finest.
I think there's so much ignorance, isn't there? I think when the last time anti-Semitism was discussed so broadly in public discourse was regarding the previous Labour leadership. And even then, I don't think members of the public really truly understood the nuance of that anti-Semitism. And it just goes to show that unless we do educate people and do show people, but it shouldn't take for you to come on to a TV show and share your trauma and your experience for people to have to understand that.
And I think that's something that Jews worldwide are experiencing too. We are exhausted from trying to defend ourselves from being Jewish, to defend Israel, the state of Israel, Jews deserving to have a homeland. You know, my friends in Israel, there's mass funerals going on right now. They're still not safe. My friend went out, just yesterday I spoke to her, and schools are closed, restaurants are closed. She went out to have a coffee at one coffee shop in the neighbourhood that was open. She looked above her head and there was 20 rockets. You know, the amount of trauma that is going on right now, and yet the mourning can't even be done in peace because we're constantly trying to have to defend ourselves.